Every day after school, the children would play in a big, beautiful garden. The grass was soft and green, and there were pretty flowers everywhere. There were also 12 peach trees that bloomed with pink and white flowers in spring and gave yummy fruit in fall. Birds sang so sweetly in the trees that the children would stop playing just to listen. "This is the best place ever," they would say. One day, the giant who owned the garden came back. He had been visiting his friend the ogre for 7 years. He didn't have much to talk about, so after 7 years, he decided to go home. When he saw the children playing in his garden, he shouted in a grumpy voice, "What are you doing here?" The children ran away scared. "This is my garden, and nobody can play here but me," the giant said. He built a tall wall around the garden and put up a sign that said, "No trespassing, you will be in trouble." The giant was very selfish. The poor children had nowhere else to play. They tried to play on the street, but it was dusty and full of rocks. After school, they would walk around the tall wall and talk about how much fun they used to have in the garden. Spring came, and flowers and birds appeared everywhere else. But in the giant's garden, it was still winter. The birds didn't want to sing because there were no children, and the trees forgot how to bloom. One brave flower popped out of the ground, but then it saw the sign and felt so bad for the children that it hid back underground and went to sleep. The only ones who were happy were the snow and the frost. Spring forgot this garden. They said, "We'll live here forever." The snow covered the grass with a big white blanket, and the frost painted the trees silver. They invited the north wind to visit, and he came wrapped in fur, blowing on the garden all day and knocking down chimneys. "This is a great place," he boomed. "Let's call the hail over." So the hail came. Every day for 3 hours, it rained down on the castle roof, breaking the tiles. Then it ran around the garden as fast as it could, breathing icy air. It wore gray clothes and its breath was like ice. The giant woke up one morning and looked outside. His garden was still cold and white. Why is spring taking so long? He wondered. I hope the weather changes soon. But spring and summer never came. Fall brought golden fruit to all the other gardens, but not the giant's. He's too selfish, Fall said. So the giant's garden stayed in winter all year round. The north wind, hail, frost, and snow partied there all the time. One morning, the giant heard beautiful music. He thought it must be the king's musicians, but it was actually a tiny bird singing outside his window. He hadn't heard a bird sing in his garden for so long that it sounded amazing. The wind and hail stopped making noise, and a sweet smell filled the air. Spring must finally be here, the giant said. He ran to the window to see. What did he see? Something amazing. The children had squeezed through a hole in the wall and were playing in the trees. Every tree had a happy child in it. The trees were so excited to see the children again that they bloomed with flowers and swayed gently above them. Birds sang happily, and flowers peeked up from the grass smiling. It was beautiful. Except for one corner. In the farthest corner, it was still winter. A tiny boy was there, crying because he couldn't climb up a tree. The poor tree was covered in frost and snow, and the north wind blew and howled around it. "Climb up, little boy," the tree said, bending its branches down. But the boy was too small. The giant watched all this and his heart ached. I've been so selfish, he realized. That's why spring wouldn't come. I'll help that little boy climb the tree, then tear down the wall. My garden will be a playground for children forever." He was truly sorry for what he had done.
The giant tiptoed downstairs, opened the door quietly, and snuck into the garden. But the children were so scared of him that they ran away, and the garden turned back into winter. Only the little boy who was crying didn't see the giant coming. The giant gently picked him up and placed him high in the tree. The tree burst into flowers. Birds sang, and the boy hugged the giant's neck and kissed him. Seeing the giant wasn't scary anymore, the other children came back with spring. "This garden is yours now, children," the giant said. He grabbed a big axe and knocked down the wall. People walking by at noon saw the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden ever. The children played all day and said goodbye to the giant in the evening. "But where's your little friend?" the giant asked. He loved the boy who kissed him the most. "We don't know," the children said. "He just disappeared." The giant felt sad. Every day after school, the children played with the giant, but the little boy he loved never came back. The giant was kind to all the children, but he always missed his first friend. "I wish I could see him again," he would say. Years passed, and the giant grew old and weak. He couldn't play anymore, so he just sat in a big chair, watching the children play and enjoying his garden. "I have many beautiful flowers," he said, "but the children are the most beautiful of all." One winter morning, the giant looked out the window while getting dressed. Winter didn't seem so bad anymore, because he knew it was just spring taking a nap and the flowers resting. Suddenly, he rubbed his eyes in shock and stared. It was an amazing sight. In the far corner, a tree bloomed with beautiful white flowers and golden branches with silver fruit. Underneath the tree stood the little boy he loved. The giant rushed downstairs, overjoyed, and ran towards the boy. But as he got closer, the giant's face turned red with anger. He saw wounds on the boy's hands and feet. "Who hurt you?" the giant roared. "Tell me, so I can kill them with my sword." "No," the boy answered. "These are wounds of love." The giant felt a strange fear and knelt before the boy. "Who are you?" he asked. The little boy smiled and said, "You let me play in your garden once. Now, come play with me in my garden, which is paradise." That afternoon, when the children came to play, they found the giant lying peacefully under the tree covered in white flowers.